For our YouTube viewers, we're just waiting for another person to show up here in the next 15 minutes, so a little bit of delay.
Okay, welcome everybody. We are going to have a little bit of a pause in the middle of it. We're waiting for a couple of the CT folks to show up, but let's get started with the structural procedural issues. So I'd like to call the meeting to order at 11. And I don't know that we need a roll call per se. Brandon, do we need to make a roll call?
I would.
Okay.
Just,
All right. Lane,
Here.
Chuck,
Present.
Present.
Gary, here. Okay.
Matt, I mean, not here.
Oh, Donna, not here.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would just specify that at the meeting today is Mr. Zibble, Mr. Sheets, Mr. Swanson, of course, is the chair. Mr. Capel is CEO of Laketran / general manager, and Brandon Dines is legal counsel, also joined by Keith Berry of the Department of Maintenance.
Thank you for that. Okay. Shall we stand for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Zibble, would you like to read the mission statement for us?
Uh-oh.
Test me again on this.
I don't have it up. I can,
Well, I've got it, so we'll
Good.
just,
Why don't you read it then?
if you don't mind, I'm not trained for this particular mission, but Laketran is committed to providing quality public transportation services to all Lake County residents with special emphasis on meeting the transportation needs of seniors and people with disabilities. Okay, do we have any public comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of our September 2nd, 2022 meeting?
So made.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes are approved. And I guess at this point, we will have to wait for the CT consultants to arrive. So
Just
we'll
wait.
put everything on pause.
Wait till they get here. Should be here soon, but we can get right into it when they get here. Anything you want on the screen here?
Unless they have something that they want.
Not that they sent me in advance, so.
I skipped that.
Slip writers, save about 5 pages. Trying to be a respectful secretary for changing this scope. They liked it. Approve those few pages.
Those are the, yeah. some of the stuff is placed about the cemetery there. We whittled down so much, I didn't have the secretary. working on it. That's not supposed to take this stuff there. So, no, sure. It's as good as my Ford navigation system. This is a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, which one?
Impressive field.
Oh, I don't know about
Captain. Captain. But that's what, Jerry's working on, Danielle.
Danielle, thank you.
that. Well, yeah.
I knew there were some things going on with it. I got a bunch of surveys a lot of times, but, you know, if you were there, would you do this, or would you like to have these kind of seats and all that? I said, no, I just really like my club seats. I just want to sit in my club seats. I don't care about standing in the outfield and drinking at a stand-up table.
That's the young people. Yeah. Yeah, we've been down there a couple times with our son who lives in Tremont. He has no interest in sitting in a seat, you know, it's all about standing there with everybody else drinking beer.
Yeah, my son, I buy him seats up in the 500 deck for opening day, and he spends his whole time down in the corner bar. Stand. This 40 years ago, I would have done the same thing.
Probably.
We talked about doing a whole bunch of renovations of the Impressive field, tearing out Terrace Club and changing that to something else. So I just never heard if they really started on any of that yet or not.
I thought they were talking about 2024.
That one was.
But I could be confusing things too. But that's what I thought I read.
Spending
A lot of money.
Yeah, it was like $40 million or something. I just think the liability situation there, so. Somebody gets hurt. I had a foul ball go off of his finger. And it stung for about 7 innings. Can I put a claim in for that? I'll tell you a lot of stories. That people lose eyes. The one that always amazes me is the Texas Rangers Arlington Stadium Arlington, where you must come down the steps and there must not be a catch tank guardrail because people come down and they fall over the guardrail. There's been at least 3 deaths like that.
Really?
Yeah, you get like 1 a year.
Like a second, is it like a second story thing?
You remember what the club seats are like at Progressive?
Yeah.
But if you go down there, they got this big glass at the end of the walkway.
Oh.
So if you do run into it, you can probably run your shoulder into it more than anything else. But in Texas, I think they just got the railing there, had the railing. And people would come down and just go right over it. And that's 40 feet drop. Maybe.
Oh, wow.
Kill him?
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet that got some lawsuits, huh?
Yeah. You'd think after one, they'd put something up, you know, like.
Well, you'd think they'd be smart enough to put something up in the first place.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah, you're right.
I think we'd like to be the guy to land it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Double whammy there. You were talking about the finger going down. Wall.
Yeah.
I had that happen. We were at an early season game and nobody in the stadium. So they moved everybody out of the shadows and up in the sunny part to try to show more people that I could be, get some of us that were freezing to be able to move. And my ball goes up and we're on first base side. And I'm watching this thing, I'm saying, you know, that's gonna go down pretty close to us. And so I'm watching it and the woman right in front of us and she's texting. And I'm looking, that ball's gonna hit her right in the head. So I stand up, you know, and this ball comes from out of Mars, I mean, it's way up there. And I reach over top of her, she never even knew that, you know, this is literally right over the top of her head. It hits my hand, and of course, it's spinning so hard, it just ricochets off my hand. My hand, I went numb from here to here instantly. Instantly. And I walked around like it was, like I'd lost my arm for a.
And you didn't even get a baseball, did you?
I've been going to games for 60 years. And I've only had 2 attempts at it. Both of them, I've had my hand up like this. One went off my thumb. That was from Stanton in 2016 series with the Yankees. And this one with Tampa, when Choi hit one, that went off this way. So I need a glove. I need to have a glove because I'm trying to catch it in the weather.
We got some seats on the first base side. They were given to us. I would never buy a seat there. And we get there and there's 4 of us. And the rest of the row, and the first row, everybody else had a glove. And I'm going, hey guys, this does not look good. I said, you know what? We're going to get the hell out of here. So we went up to the Terrace Club. When we got back, 2 or 3 of those people that had gloves had balls that had been hit over there. I mean, no.
So when the Captains, you know, had a brand new stadium, 2 of my buddies bought front row, 1 on this side of the aisle. No, all 4 on one side of the aisle. Actually, they bought all 4 front row seats right behind home plate. So the very first row, and invited me to go to one of the games in the middle of the season. And as we're sitting down, well, the guy said, "You can have the Jesus seat." I said, "What? You'll see." I'm saying the guy follows the ball up, I go right back to the net.
I've only been to 1 or 2 games at the East Lake Stadium, and both games, somebody got hurt really bad.
Really?
One of them, a gal, she was in one of the suites, and the ball comes up into the suite, and she didn't even see him.
Good afternoon. Well, just running late.
Hello.
Big deal. You're up over there. I will gladly sit here. My associate Tim Poole had the same calendar date I had, so obviously he's running late also. I'm sure he'll apologize also.
He didn't miss too much.
He missed baseball stories.
I was gonna say, I was hoping you were all finished already. And I'm just gonna answer the questions, but we'll do this anyway.
We were just talking baseball stadiums.
Anyway, they came and got her. The EMT or whatever it is, they came and hauled her out. And then the other one is where the gal, the little 8-year-old, she got hit and took her eye out or almost killed her.
Wow.
Yeah, that stadium is dangerous.
That was one of the cases Brandon took care of. We had a guy, the guy lost his eye.
Lost his eye, yeah.
His allegation was that it was fireworks, and they told him to. They came over, they escorted him saying, "Hey, the usher said it's time to leave, it's fireworks." Well, this was the 6th inning, and we know who's sitting in every seat. One of the people sitting behind him was Dan Dunlop, the sheriff. It's a great witness for us to say, no one came and said that. This guy got it. This guy realized we had video. They also happened to have the Yankees broadcast their broadcast was across the picture, they're sitting out hit where he was. So we can see that. As soon as anyway, assume the liability there, you assume the risk. But he did that with his eye walking up the stands. We tried to successful. This one that was the Choi one, Tampa Bay thing. It's coming up right at us. And it was tailing off a little bit and it was going right to my wife. And so I'm trying to reach over to protect her a little bit, but it kept going away. So it was past her, so it landed in the aisleway behind me. I was watching and the guy up there goes, "Oh, where's the ball?" And wasn't quick enough to get up and get there.
Yeah,
Get the
yeah.
ball.
I did that exact same thing on a World Series.
Yeah.
Volleyball. Me, my wife, the aisle, all came up over the top of the guys in front of us and went right between my wife's legs and rattled around underneath her seat. And then bounced back. Well, I couldn't get to it because she was in the way. The guy across the aisle is, "Don't pick up the ball."
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're back. Gentlemen, thank you. Appreciate your quick response to get here. So where we're at here is, we've gone through all of, I don't know if you have do they have a time frame on this?
There's no set time.
Okay, all right. Anyway, I guess we'll just turn it over to you, gentlemen, and hear how things went with your review of the plans.
We are good for. Well, first of all, we apologize for the miscommunication, but you can see already how close we are to this site, and obviously our availability is completely dedicated to get here whenever you call and or Ben and or the contractor to make sure this is going along without any blips and or slowdowns. But we are here to talk about the review that CT and Tech performed as part of the plan review services on behalf of the Laketran board and obviously the committee. Little history on it. We were retained obviously for providing owners rep services, and this is the lead-in part of it, which I think one of our strengths, having the qualified people looking at all aspects of the project, architects, engineers, mechanical, electrical specialists, civil engineers, and structural engineers. We had our team look at this. It took us about 10 to 12 days to make the initial review. At that time, we contacted the architect. We had our coordination meeting with the administration, and we said, let's all get in one room and start flushing out some of our initial concerns. I will say this, it was a well-received commentary from the architect, and they were very receptive to making any and all changes to alleviate any concerns that we had on behalf of Laketran. So in doing that, we published our initial draft. We wanted to make sure everyone was able to meet our very aggressive schedule, in my opinion, because there were some 200 some drawings, there were some 2,000 plus spec sheets in there that needed to be reviewed. And in doing that, we knew we needed this team effort plus time to consolidate all the comments. Once we did get that, the architect started looking at it from an independent person saying, well, we agree with everything you're doing. Some of these will require changes. Some of them will not require changes. So let's discuss the ones that don't require changes. Again, we needed to make sure the administration, Laketran administration, knew exactly what they were getting. We weren't trying to treat them as if they were newbies in this. I know they've done a lot of construction over the years, but we wanted to have these discussions just to make sure. So we discussed things like colors. We discussed things like finishes. We discussed things like materials, building systems, items that Tim will be getting into. And for the most part, I think we were all very comfortable with what was provided. We just wanted some clarification from the architect and the design team to make sure they were completely in agreement with what was going on. I provided a list of some, 20 items possibly that were just confirmation, building code questions, finished materials questions, design intent, and we got through that pretty easily. The architect did need to make some changes on most of these issues, and they did commit to finishing it by last Wednesday, November 16th, and they did submit this. Now, CT and Tech are now looking at the requested changes, and in doing that, we need to confirm that everything has been addressed. I know our team is about 80% to 85% finished with all the commentary. I would assume Tech is also in a similar situation. So we're comfortable saying that I think everything has been addressed to the satisfaction of CT consultants. Now, that said, there are a couple of things that did take some design modifications. I didn't want to bore the committee with the process that we went through, but you can see it's already 3 or 4 checks and balances back and forth in communications and written policies and things like that. We try to condense it into a very user-friendly format so that we could get through this in a very simple process. But there were a handful of items that we spent a lot of time on. And again, those are the comments that we identified as requiring design changes, which is on one of the latter pages. And I'm not here to, again, ask anyone to change what's going on, but we thought it was possibly worthwhile to have some quick discussions on the level of things that we thought were a little bit concerned about. And in doing that, one was the alternate for the masonry exterior on the garage addition. Our concern was that we understand why it was done initially. Back in 2019, putting up a metal building with a metal roof was probably a very cost-effective solution. Right now, we feel that, you know, with the cost of metal going up, with the cost of insulation going up, we're not sure if it's a cost-effective solution, but the only way we're going to know is by bidding it out. So we're saying that that's something that's probably going to come back to the board, that we're going to have some more discussions on. And if the numbers are closer than they were back 2 years ago, then maybe it's a recommendation we're going to make on behalf of the architect.
Do you mind if we ask questions as we go, or would you rather us wait to the end?
I think this is a work session still. I think you should ask the questions.
Okay. All right. Being a newbie in this kind of thing, if that, as I understand it, the plans are drawn up as a metal sort of building, sided building now. If we went to masonry, are you talking about different foundations and everything at that point? How structurally different does that become?
Well, first of all, they're both designed. It seems like that was the request of the committee from the beginning, that they wanted to have a certain type of building, but they couldn't make up their minds. But they elected to go to the metal building. The metal building does have a concrete foundation. It does have a 4-foot-high masonry wall, and then it goes metal siding above. Now, when you put up a full-height masonry wall, and I don't have all the details, I would imagine the footing became a little bit wider, but it's still the same continuous footing that would be needed on either building. But it's already designed. It's not as if it's going to slow the project down. It's just going to be a decision that needs to be made.
Bill, that had been a full bearing wall at that time. There still have been the columns coming down. Steel metal.
That's how it's designed. And
With the beam or the columns coming down?
right, if there's beams, there's joists, structural members, and then columns supporting it. And I'm not saying the masonry wall is not structural, because it is, and it's reinforced, but obviously the roof is still being carried by the steel. So that's not going to change at all.
Okay, that was my question. Thanks.
One other, again, I don't think it's a major thing, but I know it's something that the board may have requested, because we went into great detail about the ballistic entrance ways, the ballistic side lights, things like that. We questioned why it's ballistic on the exterior, but a person, once they get through the front door, there's no security and or concern about employee safety. And obviously, I think the control still is at the door, and I think that's where it belongs. I don't think the ballistic glazing was going to help, in my opinion. I was having some trouble with how the door operator would work when you now put a polycarbonate material that's like 3 inches thick and probably 4 times the weight of standard glazing, and how that's going to operate, plus getting into custom-made units. But because of that, went through the administration and they said, yeah, it's probably a good idea, but probably not going to fulfill the needs of Laketran. And therefore we asked the architect to remove that from the project. I could probably go on, but I told you it'd only be 15 minutes of us doing a presentation. So I'm going to turn this over to Tim for a few minutes to let him tell you some of his concerns.
So one of the major things we identified or were struggling with was the ability to phase in the project, especially mechanically and electrically, to allow people to move from one area to the other. And we addressed that with the design team. Their approach was to have the construction manager do that coordination of that temporary of the phasing. But one thing that did require a design change was the fire protection sprinkler system and the fire alarm system. Every time you occupy a building, it needs to be inspected and put back into service. With the number of phases that you have in the plans, it was very evident that it was going to take a very long effort to, first of all, empty the system, get it where it needs to be, and then fill it back up and test it every single time. So there was some wordage added to the construction documents on that. And I think the consensus is that instead of a fire watch, that would be the alternative to not having the building fully sprinkled or fully alarmed, was to have a fire watch. They definitely didn't want, that wasn't their direction. So the language was added to require the contractors to make sure that occupied areas were constantly in service, and that there would be no gap in the amount of services in areas where people were working. So that was a big safety issue that was identified and changed on the drawings from a sprinkler and a fire alarm standpoint. Another one, and it's kind of hand in hand, was the toilet facilities, keeping the toilet facilities in the break room operational. They addressed that on the drawing with some additional design that got the new sanitary outside of the building foundation first, protected it in a concrete bunker so that it wasn't interrupted by the new addition that was going on. So that was a very good connection on how that existing toilet was going to remain in service. Another one that required a design change on our part was the gas detection system in the back was shown as new on the drawings that we first reviewed. And we were able to make that a connection to the existing system, a tie-in. And again, that adds the benefit of not having to maintain two different systems in the building. It saves cost. Ultimately, in the end, Johnson Controls can be continuing to interface with that, and gives us the ability to expand the existing system. And that was picked up on the change drawings. Another one that was looked at by our office was the existing panels, panel boards and panel equipment in this area are antiquated. They're very old. And the original plan was to try to reuse those and recircuit them, which made things even a little bit tougher with the phasing. And so it was decided to replace the panels with new. Minor cost, I mean, there's a minor increase in cost, but I think it allows the electrical contractor to better install the new phasing from the new panel boards. And then in the end, you'll have brand new panels that you don't have to worry if we get a bad breaker or something goes wrong with them that you have to replace. So that was a change that we made for new electrical panels as we're replacing everything else in the space. And then lastly, not on the list, but I wanted to add it as a fifth item for me electrically, We discovered that the existing generator was used for the emergency lighting in the office areas. And we have concern about the existing generator being listed for emergency. It needs to have a UL rating and it needs to start within 10 seconds. And the existing generator was not, it turns out, was not UL listed for emergency lighting. So we discussed and recommended an emergency inverter system, which is like a battery for the emergency lights in the office. So that was taken into consideration and is on the new design drawings. So again, these items were proposed frankly, for just a better mousetrap way of doing things within the existing building and the renovation. Bowen accepted those, and the new documents show those. So that's my report of mechanical and electrical systems.
I was surprised when I read your report that one of the comments was that the phasing was only shown on one panel of a document. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but the one thing that I took away from presentations that we had, I think also from you, when we were looking for the OR, was that the phasing was going to be perhaps pretty complicated. Am I misinterpreting that this was sort of taken, for lack of a better term, lightly or needed more attention? And if that's the case, are you comfortable now that we've looked at the phasing well enough to have it under control?
Take that one. Okay,
Yeah,
that's a
well,
softball
either
throw.
one,
That's
yeah.
an easy one right now. When we first looked at it, you're absolutely right. It was shown on a phasing plan. And on a phasing plan, to have the contractor keep flipping back and forth, and more importantly, the people out in the field flipping back and forth, it's not going to happen. It just won't. Contractors are kind of set in their way. They're going to do their thing. And then unfortunately, there could be problems if they're not being well supervised. What was done is we put phasing on each and every drawing throughout the sets, mechanical and electrical. Not only that, we made sure wherever there were connection points that they extended far enough into the right phase. On the opposite hand, the connection points or disconnection points for certain pieces of equipment that were extending from an unoccupied space to an occupied space also were terminated to make sure that we don't have cross-contamination and or disruption of occupied and work areas. We're very confident that now it's clearer on all the drawings. When they get to that sheet, they will look at it and they will be able to clearly see where the stopping points are and where the termination points are. And then again, we know it's not perfect. That comes as part of our part as owner's rep, and obviously it's the construction manager. We're going to be on that constantly because it's an important part of the project to make sure this runs smoothly. You can hear all the things that Tim has mentioned already. All those are critical. If we lose weeks on fire suppression, if we lose weeks on fire alarms, if we lose weeks on not having any toilet facilities, it's going to be a brutal project. And we're comfortable that we've corrected as much as we possibly can. And we're going to keep watching it.
And if I can just add to that too, I don't think it was a miss on the original design documentation at all by any means. It was just the burden was more on the general contractor to manage those subs and throughout the phasing process. And my experience shows that's an okay idea, but the subcontractors should still have a basic understanding, like Bill was pointing out, of how much they have to do to get things working. If they bid and they're not sharp enough to look at a phasing drawing, they have incomplete information, and so things might get lost. It wasn't ignored by the design team at all. It was just a matter of showing it more clearly and taking more of the responsibility off of the general contractor as a whole into the subcontractors so that they know their burden of responsibility too.
Thank you.
Okay, the only last thing we have to identify is obviously we've lost potentially 6 months of construction, plus we're going to lose a couple more because this thing called winter in northeastern Ohio. So we're looking at probably a spring start on that. Because of that, as you can imagine, the construction period has moved possibly up to 6 months. And with that, due to inflation, due to cost of materials and everything else, we know that there's a slight cost increase. Now, fortunately, the design team's estimator put in a 4% increase for escalation through the mid part of 2023. But since this is going to go an additional 6 months in the construction period, which really is possibly as late as the end of 24, there was another inflationary cost added to the project of about a total of 5%, 2% for material costs and 3% for labor and general condition costs. So the new costs are identified in the report, and we just want the committee and obviously the board to be aware of that costs keep on increasing.
Any other questions? Lane, you're fine? Anything from you, Ben?
I would just say that I thought Bill and his team and Tim and his team did a great job, and they were, very thorough, caught a bunch of small stuff we need to take care of, and then these larger things, I appreciate their effort finding them. It was really nice to have a second set of eyes, and it was really great to be able to kind of, have someone else just ask questions, say, hey, what did you think about this? So I thought it was a great process.
Very good. Okay. Gentlemen, thank you. Anything from us that you want from the committee?
We're just obviously here to present to the board if needed. I'm always available. I will make sure we discuss time with the administration in advance. And if you want me at the next board meeting, I'd be happy to obviously identify and be available for any questions.
Great. Appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything we need to discuss as a committee?
Probably nothing specific about the report. I think that the report was pretty complete, and that their indication is that the drawings are in good shape for going to bids. So I think the things that they caught were probably well worth the extra money to have them take a look at.
Good. I agree. It made sense.
The phasing part of it, I think was a good catch on their part. I would agree with Tim's comment that along with my experience and his experience, the general contractor does not watch a lot of those kind of phasing type things to the extent that they really need to watch them. So.
Well, in this case, at least from my understanding, it's something we're really going to have them take a look at, or it's very complicated.
Yeah. They're gonna have to stay on top of it, and they're gonna have to keep it coming up in their construction monthly meetings all the time.
Right. Okay. Lane, anything?
Nope.
Okay. Well, can we have a motion to accept the headquarters plan review report as prepared by CT Consultants? And then we'll present this or include it in the board packet going forward, or add it to as an addendum.
Yeah, I can do whatever the committee would like. As the agenda went out, I have Bill presenting and then a report from the committee immediately after that. I can change that to whatever you would like.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Well, we start with a motion to accept the report.
I'll make that motion that we accept the CT report.
Thank you. May I have a second? You're up, Lane.
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Any old business for the good of the order?
Real quick, I'll be fast. I wanted to make sure when we talked about the masonry versus steel, that everyone understood what actually was transpiring. So when the building was originally designed, when Bowen did their initial designs, everything was masonry. When the cost came in high, we said, change that to masonry / steel. So that's why there is a masonry design that was done and a steel design that was done. The way the procurement is written today, the standard item is the masonry and steel wall, but the bidders are instructed to provide a price for the masonry wall that is selected at the contract award time. So you'll know the price of the masonry and the steel, and you'll be able to pick which one you prefer. But that is written specifically into the bid documents for you guys to see. So just wanted to clarify that.
That helps. Thank you. Okay, any other old business? Any new business? And may I have a motion for adjournment?
Second.
We probably should officially cancel tomorrow's meeting.
Do we need a motion for that or just,
I don't think we need a motion. I think we just need to mention it.
okay,
I'm sorry, I should have thought of that.
Correct. As chair, you can just simply state that there'll be no meeting.
then I simply state that the meeting tomorrow is canceled.
Sorry, I interrupted your motion to adjourn.
I believe we have a motion. I believe we have a second.
Correct.
We went through this last time. Do we have to vote on this?
Technically.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.